Hey, what is going on guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the most played champions for this patch in Challenger. Now, with Challenger players prioritizing these champions, if you know how to play them well, then these are most likely the best champions that you can pick in this patch. So with that being said guys, let's get started. So for this video, we're going to start down in the support role here because we usually start in the top lane, so we're going to switch it up for this video. The three most picked supports right now are Thresh, Karma, and Sona. So for Karma, she's usually a fairly highly picked support once you do get up into the higher elos, but for Thresh and for Sona, they're two support picks that have seen a rise in popularity over the past few patches now. I think for Thresh in this meta, we're seeing a lot of pretty squishy supports being played right now, like the Karma, like the Sona, Soraka, Janna. These support champions, it's just very easy for Thresh to hook them in the early game and to just take advantage of their lower health pool. They are very squishy support champions, so if you do take Ignite on Thresh, and if you do play with a fairly aggressive AD carry, then you can get a pretty good snowball going in the early game with him. I think the changes to the support items also helped him out, because once you do finish your quest now on Thresh, you do get that shield, which grows over time, so it just makes you a little bit tankier. And if you do take Courage on him as well and you proc that, then it's going to be a lot harder to kill Thresh come mid to late game team fights. And then for Sona, with these other supports getting nerfed, like Lulu's been nerfed recently, Karma's been nerfed a little bit, I think that Sona is one of the better heal supports, or just like protective supports that you can play right now in this patch. If you do end up reaching like the mid to late game with Sona, then her heal is absolutely insane. It's on like a 3 or 4 second cooldown, and it actually heals for a lot, so you can definitely just solo carry games with this champion if you do reach mid to late game team fights. And she's also one of the best in this meta right now with Ardent Sensor, because we're seeing a lot of champions that just really benefit from you picking up that item. And because Sona, because whenever she uses her W, it gets a shield, or it gives a shield to all of her teammates, and therefore it's gonna proc that Ardent Sensor on her full team, so you really get good value out of that item on Sona, which is another reason to why she's a very good pick right now. And then for the AD carry role in this patch, the three most picked are Caitlyn, Lucian, and Xayah. So for Lucian right now, he's one of the most picked, but he's actually not having very good success in the higher elos in this patch. Blade did get nerfed in this patch, and his Q also got a mana cost increase. And when I've been playing against Lucian recently, I found that he just runs super fast in the laning phase. He's rarely on a decent amount of mana, which makes it a lot harder for him to trade in lane now. He's actually only got a 41% win rate in Challenger in this patch, so he's definitely gotten a little bit weaker now, and people probably haven't looked into that very much, and they still think he's a pretty good pick, but he's definitely, at least stat wise, not performing as well in this patch. On the other hand though, for Caitlyn and for Xayah, they're performing very well in this patch. Caitlyn is still doing great due to the new static Shiv build. Originally I thought that with the Runa's nerf, Caitlyn was just gonna fall off quite a bit, but the static Shiv build on her is actually very viable, and it does allow you to have a very good mid-game power spike now. And then for Xayah, she is one of the safer AD carries because of her ultimate. It's just very hard to engage on her. The amount of damage she can pump out, like in a mid to late game team fight, if she does get a few of her feathers out and she gets a nice E off on the opponent, then she's definitely a very strong champion if you know how to play her correctly. Now for the jungle in this patch, these are basically the same three junglers that you're always going to see in the higher elos, being Lee Sin, Elise, and Kha'Zix. They're pretty much always, they're always featured in these videos because they're just very strong junglers if you can play them well due to their strong early games. And once you do move up into the ranks, the early game is a lot more important, which is why these junglers usually do see a very high play rate. Now if we take a look at the mid lane for this patch, the three most picked are Orianna, Taliyah, and then Syndra. So Orianna is just a very stable mid lane pick. You can pretty much pick her into anything and you can do pretty well, so she's always going to have a pretty high play rate, especially in the higher elos. Taliyah has seen a rise in popularity over the past few patches now. I think that she is definitely one of the best shove and roam mid lane champions, which is why players do like to prioritize her. You can always just be looking for roams with the champion, you always shove the enemy into tower and just either look to get vision down to help your team out, or you look to help snowball your other lanes, which is why she can be a very successful pick for solo queue. And then Syndra is still a very viable and very strong pick in this patch right now. I think she might even be a little bit better in this patch because two of the strongest AD carries right now, being Draven and Twitch, Syndra just does really well into them because they're AD carry champions that if you leave them alive, they can deal a ton of damage in team fights. But with Syndra, you just press R on them and you can delete those high priority squishy targets very fast in team fights. So she's always going to be a pretty good pick unless she does receive a few more nerfs in the next few patches. And then lastly here, to round out this video, in the top lane, the three most picked are Kennen, Galio, and Fiora. So Kennen is basically like the new Jace in the top lane right now. Jace isn't as popular anymore. A lot more players are playing Kennen now, and I think it's mainly because Kennen just does offer a little bit more than Jace does. Jace does have better poke, he's got better siege, but Kennen in the 1v1 and in a side lane is a lot better than Jace because he does provide great self peel for himself. He's got the stun, so he does have a lot of kiting potential in his kit, and he can definitely get out of a lot of sticky situations because of his E. If you can get ahead in the early game as Kennen and just apply your split push, then you can just draw a lot of pressure on the map, and if you can end up winning 1v1s or even 1v2s as the champion when you are split pushing, then you're gonna have very good success on Kennen in this patch. And I think another reason to why he's seen more popularity is because Fizz in the top lane, he's really not very popular anymore. And like Fizz and champions like Aurelia, those champions aren't in the meta, and they're champions that did or they do pretty well into Kennen. So he's just got very good favorable matchups right now in the top lane, which is another reason to why he's a very good pick. Now for Galio in this patch, he's one of the better tanks, if not the best tank that you can play in 7.11. I think that's the main reason to why he does have a pretty high play rate. Other tank champions have just got nerfed way too much recently, like Nautilus, Maokai, Poppy. They're not very viable right now, at least in this patch, and that's why you do see champions like Galio and Gragas have a little bit more of a higher play rate in the top lane because they are the best tank champions, and if you are lacking a tank on your team, they are the best ones that you can pick right now. And then for Fiora in this patch, she also does have some pretty favorable matchups. She's also kind of a ticking time bomb in the sense that if you don't shut this champion down in the early game and you let the game go on to like the 3 or 4 item point, then Fiora is going to be able to split push very easily. There's very few champions that can actually deal with the Fiora split push just because she does have the true damage coming out of her passive, which scales with more AD that you get. So the longer the game goes, like the stronger this champion gets, and it's also very hard to just beat her in the 1v1 because if you're playing a champion that does have a very telegraphed CC ability, then Fiora can just W that, stun you, and just turn on you for a lot of damage. So she is a hard champion to deal with unless you do shut her down early. I think that Kennen is one of the only picks that can actually do pretty well against her in the laning phase. Kennen does have the range advantage, so it's a lot harder for Fiora to win that matchup, especially because Fiora can't really W the Kennen stun unless Kennen does really telegraph it. So if you are looking for a good counter to Fiora, then I would play Kennen, but if you are looking for a very good split pushing top laner, I'd be picking up Fiora in 7.11. So that is going to be it for this video, guys. If you can play any of these champions well in this patch, then they are pretty strong picks. These are the champions that the challenger players are prioritizing in this patch, and if the best players on the solo queue ladder are playing these champions a lot, then it probably means they're very good picks right now in this patch. So with that being said, guys, thanks for watching, have an awesome day, and I will see you in my next video.